All right, I'd like to call this Cleveland Heights City Council meeting to order. It's Monday, March 16th at 7:50. Addie, would you please call the roll?
Cobb.
Here.
Larson. Posh.
Here.
DeWitt Foy.
Here.
Stone. Here. Kuda.
Here.
Cohen.
Here.
All right. No amendments to the agenda. We'll skip down to approval of the minutes. There was several of them, February 2nd, 3rd, and 17th. Hearing no objections, the minutes are approved. Now we have our young man from Cleveland Heights High School, Manuel, who's going to get up and tell us what's going on in our schools.
There it is. Okay. All right, good evening, City Council members, Mr. Kuda and Mayor Petras. My name is Emmanuel Gutierrez, and I am a sophomore at Heights High. As a member of the superintendent student cadre, I'm here to give a brief report of what's happening at Heights High. I'm honored to be here this evening. Thanks for the opportunity. First, I'd like to share some highlights from our athletic teams and some recent events that took place at Heights High. So indoor track, congratulations to Aiden, Sirius, Harrison, Marquise, and Diani, who had outstanding races in the 400, 4x200, and 4x400 at the NEO ITC All-Star Meet on February 21st and went on to compete at the Division I Indoor State Championships. On Sunday, March 1st, sophomore Cassidy Thompson ran a fantastic 3,200 meter race and qualified for the Indoor State Championships. Boys wrestling, congratulations to Tavion Wallens and St. Gavin Overby for qualifying for the district tournament. Girls wrestling, 4 girls wrestlers qualified for the district tournament: Tamaya Bowie, Chelsea Gibson, Brianna Robinson, and August Walker. Tamaya Bowie earned first place and was the sectional champion in her weight class. Swim and dive, congratulations to Aaron, Kieran, Mason, Tommy, Jaden, and Charlie, and Henry for their strong performances at the district competition. Boys basketball, the team competed in the district semifinals against Berea Mid-Park earlier this month. Some highlights from February: the Heights High Art Department announced that 4 seniors had their artwork exhibited in the Eileen Kellner Juried High School Art Show. The exhibition was located in the Beechwood Community Center and remained on display through March 29th. Heights High students received 16 awards at the 2026 Iowa and Midwest Regional Scholastic Art Competition, among more than 8,000 entries. Oh. Senior Michael Burford and junior Zayvon O'Neill received Gold Key Awards for their artwork and advanced to the national competition held each spring in New York. 14 Heights High students in the Heights Career Tech programs were inducted into the National Technical Honor Society on February 26th. The National Technical Honor Society is an educational nonprofit that honors and recognizes students and teachers in career and technical education. So some recent events in March: all Heights High juniors took the SAT on March 4th during the school day. Students reported to the testing locations in the morning and completed the exam before midday, with extended time provided for those accommodated with or approved for College Board accommodations. The Heights High Swim Cadets hosted their 87th annual show, Set Sail, from March 5th through March 7th in the high school natatorium, and it was actually great. Heights High held parent-teacher conferences on March 12th with an early release schedule the following day to allow families to meet with teachers and discuss student project progress. The Vocal Music Department hosted their midwinter concert on March 13th in the main auditorium. The following day, students competed at the OMEA District Large Group Adjudicated event, where both the Women's Choir and the A Cappella Choir both qualified for the state competition. Heights High will host the 29th Annual Cleveland Northeast Suburban College Fair on March 19th from 7 to 9 p.m. in the competition gym. Students and families will have the opportunity to speak with admission representatives, learn about scholarships, attend an HBCU workshop, and participate in informational sessions about college preparation and Heights career tech programs. And that looks like that's it. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. All right, great. Always great to hear good things happening at the high school. Communications from the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. As some folks may
Oh,
know,
let me just say, Emmanuel, if you have homework, you can go.
but you're welcome to stay if you want.
No, I just always feel guilty when he's,
Thank you, Mr. President. As some folks know, I was in Columbus on Tuesday and Wednesday meeting with state legislators. We met with 19 total folks to discuss our capital request regarding Cumberland Pool. The capital budget is one of many places that we are looking for funding. In addition to those meetings last week, I met with a state senator this afternoon here in the Cleveland area, and we'll continue to talk with other folks as we continue to look for funding for Cumberland Pool. Also, as folks may remember, by passing charter changes last fall, we created a Department of Human Resources, and today Dee Weber, our first director, started in that role. We're very excited to have her. As folks may have heard in the city newsletter, we are creating a Cumberland task force. The deadline for submitting your application is on the 18th, and so I encourage you all to take a look at that or recommend any folks who you may have in mind. Folks may remember that in the fall, we were talking about support for the Noble Business District. And so last week, the Noble Neighborhoods Business Association signed an agreement with the city where we are injecting just over $300,000 into the neighborhood to support its business district. And finally, this last week, in talking with the Edwards family, they confirmed their interest in having a parade later this year. So we are looking forward to welcoming Layla back later this year, and there will be details to follow. And with that, I'm done with my report for this evening.
thank you, Mayor. City Administrator's report. This is Michael Reese.
Thank you, President Kuda, Vice President Larson, and members of council. I'll be brief tonight. I continue to meet individually with council members, attend council committee meetings, and participate in meetings with council leadership and the mayor. Continue to meet with community members, take tours of city operations and facilities, and develop relationships with staff. About a week ago, I met with Annette Wallace from the First Call, and we discussed how Cleveland Heights benefits from this program. I think it's an amazing program and something that we want to continue. I coordinated with our team on the city's health insurance renewal, scheduling open enrollment, and communication to employees. Currently working with an administration committee on various policies regarding city-owned vehicles. We'll have more to report out on that soon. Working on strategic and proactive communications and community engagement with our team, something that I know council cares about very much. And finally, we're preparing for next steps on the US EPA consent decree with Public Works, Law, Finance, and Communications, and how this might impact the 2027 budget. That's my report this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the City Administrator? All right, very good. Oh, yes.
President, if I could, I'm sorry, I forgot to add a request by the Public Works Director in my own report. So if I could, I'd like to request permission to bid Project 2602 Pavement Striping Project 2026, 2027, and 2028.
All right. Permission granted.
No, sorry.
Oh, that's right.
So moved.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
Thank you.
Departmental reports. I see we have the chief here. Did you want to say a few words? You don't have to.
No, absolutely.
Okay. Don't want to put you on the spot.
Good evening, everybody. Mayor Petrus, members of City Council, fellow administrators, and members of our community. In light of recent event, I felt compelled to come up here and give a statement, which I've prepared. I'd like to take a few moments to address the incident that occurred on Saturday, February 28th, 2026. As Chief of Police, I believe it's important to clarify the facts and provide context regarding the actions of the Cleveland Heights police officers. After the matter was brought to my attention, I personally reviewed the incident, including available video and reports from the officers involved. Based upon that review, I determined that the officers' actions were consistent with their lawful duties and training. I want to be very clear about one important point. There was no pre-planned coordination or collaboration between the City of Cleveland Heights Police Department or federal immigration authorities on the morning of February 28th. Our department was not contacted by ICE or any other federal agency regarding an operation in Cleveland Heights or surrounding communities, and I had no prior knowledge of any such activity. It's also important and helpful to provide some context about police responsibilities. Officers are often called upon to investigate situations that may not immediately involve a crime, but still present potential public safety concerns. Complaints about erratic driving, suspicious activity, or potential road rage are taken seriously because of the risks they can pose to the public. Traffic stops are also among the most unpredictable and potentially dangerous duties officers perform. In this particular case, an officer traveling westbound on Mayfield near Eddington on routine patrol was approached by the driver of a dark colored SUV. The driver reported that the vehicle behind him was following closely and driving erratically by weaving through traffic. I acknowledge the reported driver was wearing tactical style attire. However, our officer did not identify the individual as belonging to any specific agency. Based on that concern that was reported, the officer conducted a traffic stop, which is her duty to briefly investigate the driving behavior. As law enforcement officers, we're often faced with situations we do not know the motives or the intentions of others. That's certainly inherently dangerous and concerning circumstances. From the perspective of any driver, believing that an unknown individual is following you in an aggressive, erratic manner can certainly be alarming. If I were in that same position, I would have likely taken the same step and notified nearby police officer so the situation could be addressed and assessed. After the officer spoke with the driver and determined that no traffic violations or criminal activity had occurred, the officer concluded the stop and the driver was free to leave. The interaction was brief and consistent with standard investigative procedures. I also want to emphasize that Cleveland Heights Police Department regularly trains our officers on First and Fourth Amendment issues, as well as our policies related to immigration matters. Our policies provide clear guidance, and officers are expected to follow them. Along with our policies regarding immigration, were recently provided in a recent city email newsletter, but I want to take this opportunity to reiterate that our police department does not enforce civil immigration laws. Our officers do not ask about, collect, or store information regarding any person's immigration status. We will not ask anyone about their immigration status, and we do not detain anyone for a civil violation of immigration laws or a related civil warrant. And we will certainly not hold people on ICE detainers alone without a warrant or federal criminal charge. I recognize that topics related to immigration enforcement can be sensitive and may raise concerns with our community. My goal in speaking today is simply to ensure that the record accurately reflects what occurred and to provide context regarding the actions taken by our officers. However, it's important that policy decisions be made guided by accurate facts. Restricting lawful investigative actions based on misinterpretations of events could hinder our ability to respond effectively to legitimate public safety concerns. At this time, our existing policies provide appropriate guidance, and I recommend that we continue adhering to them. The Cleveland Heights Police Department remains committed to serving all, and I want to repeat that, all members of our community with professionalism, fairness, and respect. Our officers will continue to carry out their duties consistent with the law, our policies, and the responsibility to protect the safety of everyone in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for Chief Britton or? Okay, thank you. Really appreciate you coming tonight. I just wanted to ask, so this is during departmental reports, is there anybody on council that wants to hear a departmental report at the April 6th meeting? You don't have to come up with anything now, but by all means, let me know, and so I can let the administration know if there's a departmental report you would like to hear at the next meeting, and we'll do our best to make sure that that happens. Clerk of Council, do you have anything to report?
I just wanted to say thank you to our safety forces and also our Public Works Department for this past weekend's work, cleaning up all of the wind damage that has happened. It was a lot, so thank you guys.
Yes. All right, now time for public comment. I don't usually read this, but I'm going to read it this time. Cleveland Heights City Council provides 2 opportunities for public comment. The first public comment period is limited to items on tonight's agenda and will occur before the discussion of legislation. Do we have any of those? 2 of those. A second public comment period will be later in the meeting, is reserved for general matters. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes. Speakers are asked to direct their comments to council as a body and to remain within the allotted time. Council does not endorse the content of public comments. Council members will not engage in debate during this time. We welcome public participation and understand that people come here with strong feelings. At the same time, the council is bound by the First Amendment. We cannot regulate speech based on content or viewpoint. While speakers are entitled to express their views, the chair will enforce the council's rules regarding time, order, and conduct so that the meeting may proceed in an orderly fashion. We're just basically asking to be, just be respectful and civil. Speech or conduct that disrupts the orderly conduct of the meeting may result in a warning, and if the disruption continues, loss of the floor. So when your name is called, please come to the podium, state your name, and for the record, your name for the record, and indicate whether your comment relates to an agenda item or is general comment. And yeah, make sure you say your street or neighborhood.
Diane Hallam. Oh, okay. Zenobia Sheets.
Does that mean we only have one?
Yeah. For
For this, okay, got it. Hi.
Hey. Here. I'm sorry. Good evening. I'm going to briefly introduce the Cleveland Heights BIPOC Affinity Council, which is being developed as a community-based advisory and engagement body to strengthen communication, inclusion, and collaboration between the city and its Black and Indigenous people of color residents. Our goal is to support relationship building, civic participation, and constructive dialogue so residents feel informed and included in decisions that affect our community. With that in mind, I have a few questions regarding transparency around the CDBG Annual Action Plan. First, regarding the 33 grant applications reviewed by the Citizens Advisory Committee, I understand those were the August of 2025 applicants and interviews? Okay. Were those recorded or documented someplace as far as who the applicants are for public view? Additionally, how many of those applicants previously received ARPA funds or prior CDBG allocations? Looking at the action plan itself, several items would benefit from a clearer public explanation. For youth services, in which like that's where I love to be, right? With youth services, the plan lists $116,000 approximately across multiple locations. But the public cannot see a clear line item breakdown of providers, activities, and the locations for said services. So ultimately, the question is any portion of that funding being allocated to private schools, and if so, under what agreement? For the housing rehabilitation program, which receives a little over $600,000, the plan estimates approximately 45 households would benefit from this. And I guess I would like the parcel information to see and make sure that this is fairly and equitably being distributed throughout the city. For the commercial district revitalization, it's listed at $239,000 being allocated to 20 businesses. Have those businesses already been identified? And if they have, what was the application process for those? I would also appreciate clarification on the Hebrew Academy sewer project, which appears within a broader infrastructure category. So clarification would be, has NEORSD already provided sewer funding? And if so, has that funding been allocated towards this? And how does the public benefit from a private school location? But that was everything.
Okay, Zenobia, that is a mouthful.
Yes.
So the applications are always online.
Okay.
Now, we don't discuss the applications. We do that in executive session.
Okay.
Just because that's personnel
Personal information. Okay.
Some of these other questions, and they're all good questions, I would think might have to be answered by Brian Iorio.
Okay.
So I don't know if I was jotting down some of them, but I don't know that I got them all.
But that's okay. I'll email you all the questions, so that way we can possibly just reconvene in another meeting, a private meeting possibly, if you're welcome.
Yeah.
I'm happy to put Brian in touch with you, and then you can have a phone call or sit down with him and just go through your questions with him if you want.
Sounds like a
He's the
winner.
one who leads it for the staff, so I think that's probably the most helpful.
Okay. Sounds like a winner.
Like the youth services question,
Yes.
the line, it's like youth services, right? And
Right.
it's like an amount. Yeah, the breakdown is, that's something beyond what we get.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they have it.
I just wanted to make sure that all of the kids within the community is receiving
And you were
some type of
specifically asking,
assets.
I'm sorry.
So-
You were specifically asking if private school
Correct.
students also benefit from this.
No, I wanted to ensure that private school students were not the only kids that are benefiting from this.
Oh, I don't want to say anything, because
So it'll deserve
that would surprise me.
another conversation.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think getting you the line items would answer that question.
I think so.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
thank you. Always good to see you. All right. I'm sorry, I lost my place here. Okay, now we're at legislation. So we have four that are for first reading for consideration or adoption. Go ahead, Eddie.
I have ordinance number 054-2026 on first reading. I have ordinance establishing the Cumberland Pool Facility Task Force and declaring the necessity this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Petrus. And I believe we do have an amendment on this. We'll need a motion to amend.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to amend ordinance number 54-2026 as amended by a substitution of March 16, 2026.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. Then we need to vote on the legislation. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Mayor, did you want to say anything about this task force?
Just like to thank Councilman Cobb for suggesting this idea. I think that it's a great way to engage the community in this really important project.
Please.
Sure. In case anyone is wondering, we amended the legislation this evening to potentially increase the membership from 9 to 13. At this point, we've received 26 or 27 applications. So we want to give as many people as possible an opportunity to participate on the task force.
And if there's anybody here that wants to participate, when's the deadline?
Is it the 18th? I think the mayor just said that.
All right, the 18th. All right, good. All right,
We need a vote.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
Next, I have resolution number 055-2026 on first reading, a resolution calling on the state of legislature of Ohio to pass legislation to allow for the creation of a community energy pilot program in Ohio and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure introduced by all city council members.
So moved. Second.
All right, any discussion? I see Jerry Unger's here. Thank you for bringing this particular thing to our attention. And, oh, yes, thank you. Yep, really, Adam, thank you so much. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
Next, I have ordinance number 060-2026 on first reading, an ordinance establishing salary schedules, position classifications, and other compensation and benefits for officers and employees of the city, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure introduced by Mayor Petrus.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
I would just add that I am glad that we're actually getting this ordinance timely passed so that the employees can get their cost of living increases normally scheduled in April.
All righty, anything? Yes, please.
Can you do a roll call vote? I need to recuse myself on
Yes,
this one.
certainly.
I have a spouse that is employed as the water aerobics instructor at Cumberland, and I can't vote on her
Yeah,
payroll.
that's got to be big money.
$100.
Cobb,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
DeWitt Foy,
Aye.
Posh, Cohen,
Aye.
Kuda,
Aye.
Stone.
Aye.
All right, next I have resolution number 064-2026 on first reading, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Cuyahoga Soil and Water Conservation District and Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District to provide services necessary for compliance with minimum control measures number 1 and number 2 of the Ohio EPA National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure introduced by Mayor Petrus.
All right, do I have a motion?
So moved.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Next, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 first readings.
I have resolution number 056-2026 on first reading, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to take all actions necessary to apply for and accept one or more Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council 2026 Energized Community Grants, and declaring the necessity this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure introduced by Mayor Petrus. I have ordinance number 057-2026 on first reading, an ordinance authorizing all actions necessary to establish an opt-in natural gas program pursuant to section 4929.27A1 Ohio Revised Code, jointly through NOPEC as a NOPEC member, and declaring the necessity this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure introduced by Mayor Petrus. I have resolution number 058-2026 on first reading, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an amendment to an agreement with Stantec Consulting Services, Inc. to prepare a housing needs assessment and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure introduced by Mayor Petrus. I have resolution number 059-2026 on first reading, a resolution authorizing the mayor to submit the Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan and Entitlement Application for the year beginning January 1, 2026, and declaring the necessity this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure introduced by Mayor Petrus.
Thank you. And all these were discussed in committee of the whole. We have 3 second readings for passage tonight. Go ahead, Annie.
I have resolution number 052-2026 on second reading. A resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Playcore Wisconsin, Inc., DBA Game Time through the Omnia Cooperative Purchasing Program for the installation of a tot playground at Dennison Park and declaring the necessity this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Petrus.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? So this is going to be right by the splash pad at Dennison. And let the fun begin this summer. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
Next, I have resolution number 031-2026 on second reading as amended 3/16/2026. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement to lease an unoccupied room within the city's recreation center located at 1 Monticello Boulevard, Cleveland Heights, Ohio 44118, finding that the room is not needed for public use and declaring the necessity this legislation should become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Petrus.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
All right, any discussion?
I would like to add that we did change the rate. The rate has changed in this legislation from $200 a month to $500 a month, based on an analysis from the staff.
Appreciate that. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
Next, I have ordinance number 051-2026 on second reading, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute an amendment to the tower lease agreement with T-Mobile Central LLC for the use of a portion of city-owned property located at 14200 Superior Road for the construction, installation, operation, maintenance, repair, replacement, and improvement of a wireless communications facility and the grant of associated licenses and easements, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Petrus.
So moved.
Second.
All right, appreciate that. Go ahead.
Mr.
Councilwoman.
President, on the council of my employer, I need to recuse myself from this vote and any discussion.
All right. Yes.
If you could also do a roll call vote for me too. I have to recuse myself. I have a financial interest in the company.
All righty. Any other discussion? Addie, would you please call the roll?
Cobb.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Posh. DeWitt Foy.
Yes.
Kuda.
Aye.
Cohen. Stone.
Yes.
All right, next we have the consent agenda. Did I skip anything?
No.
Okay, we have 3 items on the consent agenda. Do I have to suspend the rules for this afterwards?
I'll read it and then you'll suspend the rules,
Okay.
yes.
See, you didn't put it on here.
Right, I have 3 on
I'm lost without that.
3 on consent agenda for you guys. Resolution number 061-2026 on first reading, a resolution proclaiming April 6th through 10th, 2026 to be National Community Development Week and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Petrus. I have resolution number 062-2026 on first reading, a resolution joining with the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development and communities throughout the nation in observation of April 2026 as Fair Housing Month, reaffirming the City of Cleveland Heights' commitment to fair housing, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by all City Council members. And finally, I have resolution number 063-2026 on first reading, a resolution proclaiming April 2026 to be National Poetry Month, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by all City Council members.
Thank you, Addie. Can I have a motion to suspend the rules?
I move to suspend the rules for the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor of suspending the rules?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. And then we'll vote on the actual consent agenda. We have a motion for that?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
And any discussion on National Poetry Month, Housing Month, and National Community Development Week? I said poetry. I just didn't rhyme. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Now we're on to committee reports. Who would like to go first? J.D. Foy.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Community Relations and Recreation Committee will meet next Monday, March 23rd at 7 p.m. We'll be getting an update on the Parks, Recreation, and Open Spaces Master Plan. Anyone's free to join that, or it will be aired as well.
We've had a couple changes of times for committee meetings for this coming Monday. So at 5 o'clock, we're going to have a 30-minute Finance Committee meeting. We're going to be discussing the finances, the audits, some debt service, where we stand with some of our fund balances. Also a discussion to see if we should put a moratorium on all additional funding requests until we get a bond rating. It's something that was talked about in our last meeting. But we'll come up with something and then bring that forward to council.
Very good. Vice President?
Thank you, President Kuda. Municipal Services and Environmental Sustainability Committee met on March 9th. Public Works Director Clinkscale and staff members from McMahon, DeGullis, and Wade Trim provided an update on the work that has been done, which is extensive, by Cleveland Heights to comply with the EPA consent decree and the work that remains. Clerk Bowster has posted the slideshow presentation on the city's website. If you're interested in this, I'd recommend you go and look at it. There's a lot of information on that presentation that updates us and also tells us what the future looks like. So you go to the search box and you type in EPA consent decree and select public meetings, presentations, and press releases. Next meeting of the committee will be held on April 13th at 7 p.m. Climate and Environmental Sustainability Citizens Committee meets tomorrow, March 17th at 4 p.m. And the Transportation Mobility Citizens Committee meets March 25th at 6:45 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Cobb.
The Administrative Services Committee meeting is going to meet this Monday at 5:30. Along with the mayor, it is our intention to try and get through all of the applicants for the Cumberland Task Force with our expectation that we will be making appointments at our next meeting in April.
Councilwoman Cohen?
Yes, to report on the March 9th committee meeting of the Planning and Development Committee. The big presentation we had from Planning and Development staff was on accessory dwelling units. These are smaller secondary residences on a single property. The Planning Department has been researching this for over a year. There's a lot of data shared. There were over 600 survey responses and 25,000 views of educational videos that were put out on the city's communications platforms. Based on that feedback, the proposed zoning was adjusted. And one specific important point is that the ordinance as it was drafted requires owner occupancy either of the accessory dwelling unit or of the main principal dwelling unit. So we're not, there is no legislation that is on the docket yet. We discussed holding a more robust community town hall meeting where the community would have the opportunity to hear essentially, I believe, the same presentation that council did, although you can watch that also on YouTube for the committee meeting, and then get some more resident feedback before we plot our next steps on that. Also, in the vein of community listening sessions and town halls this Thursday, just a reminder, March 19th, 6:30 p.m., we'll be having here in council chambers a listening session on the Blanche Road extension project with the developer here for that project. And just a note for the next committee meeting for the Planning and Development, since we have 7 committees and 6-hour slots, the Planning and Development Committee meetings are moving to the fourth Tuesday of each month, with our next meeting being on April 28th at 5:30 p.m.
Thank you, and thank you for remembering about the special hearing. Councilwoman Stone, you want to talk about do you have a Housing Committee meeting scheduled?
We do. Our Housing Committee will be meeting on April 13th at 5 p.m. We're anticipating hearing from staff about plans to be for a review of the housing code, and we'll begin renewing the conversation about short-term rentals and learning more about that possible legislation in the future.
Thank you very much. All right, next we're going to go to public comment, general public comment. Again, 3 minutes. Make sure you say your name and the street you live on and the city, and let's go.
Stacy Ferguson.
Stacy Ferguson, Tremont, Cleveland Heights. Good evening, council members, mayor, and residents. I stand before you tonight as a concerned resident regarding the planning and execution of multicultural community events in Cleveland Heights, a city that proudly proclaims that all are welcome. I want to first acknowledge the efforts made through the recent Black History Program in partnership with University Heights. While the intention was appreciated, the program did not fully reflect the richness of Black history and lacked meaningful input from Cleveland Heights residents and local vendors. On March 2nd, I reached out to Mayor Petrus to express these concerns and to begin a conversation about planning for upcoming events such as Pride and Juneteenth. I have participated in the City of Beechwood's events and programming since their inception. Therefore, I offered my experience and willingness to collaborate. I appreciate the mayor's prompt response and being connected with the events planner and communication director. However, since then, all communication has stopped and timing is moving quickly. Neighboring communities have already announced their summer programming, and Cleveland Heights businesses and vendors deserve timely information so they can plan where to invest their time and resources. Many would prefer to support celebrations within their own city. I respectfully urge council and city leadership to prioritize community events, place them clearly on the calendar, and actively engage residents in the planning process. With Pride Month, Juneteenth, and National Night Out approaching, thoughtful and intentional planning is essential. Inclusive, meaningful events do not always require large budgets. They really require collaboration, communication, and commitment. Cleveland Heights is a community made up of many different walks of life, diverse faiths, culture, races, nationalities, and economic backgrounds. But what unites us all is that we all call this city home. As I take my seat, if we truly believe that all are welcome, then our actions must reflect our words, representation must be visible, engagement must be genuine, and community must be built together, not assumed. Because a welcoming city is not defined by what it says on paper, it is defined by how its people feel when they show up. Thank you.
Mr. President, if I could, thank you. Stacy, thank you for joining tonight's meeting. Just to reiterate, you reached out earlier this month. I replied the same day, putting you in touch with the events planner. I was not aware until your email at 8 p.m. this evening that that meeting did not happen. And so I'm happy to follow up with staff. The reality is that we have almost 500 employees here, and I don't know everything that happens. And so I'm happy to follow up with them and remind them to meet with you.
Sean Herman.
Hello, Sean, Cleveland Heights, Rivier Road. Thanks for having me. I'm here to speak tonight about flock cameras. According to a Plain Dealer article posted February 7th of this year, on February 15th, 2025, Officer Letitia Moore of East Cleveland Police used the city's flock cameras and computer systems to spy on someone for, quote, non-law enforcement purposes. The article does not specify what the exact purposes were. I'm not saying that because this type of abuse of power happened once in East Cleveland, it will happen here, but it didn't happen just in East Cleveland. Similar incidents have happened in Atlanta, Georgia, Sedgwick, Kansas, Johnson County, Texas, and Hampton Roads, Virginia. A larger scale flock database breaches, as well as incidents of side door or backdoor data access, have occurred recently in Massachusetts, Virginia, Texas, Illinois, Colorado, California, Michigan, and Washington states. The city is 2 years into a 5-year contract with Flock, and we're 3 years into Trump's presidency, so 3 years remain. There are other options besides Flock. Flock is not terribly secure anyways, and it does not require law enforcement accounts to use multi-factor authentication and seems willing to access and sell data from local police departments with alacrity. A broken contract is a headache for the city and an injustice we are all witnessing is a bigger headache. This injustice is the second largest instance of a mass kidnapping in this country's history, second to the course of slave trade. I urge the City Council to consider this action. Thank you for hearing me.
Barbara Sosnowski.
Good evening. Barbara Sosnowski, Northampton Road in the Noble neighborhood. 2 weeks ago, I sent a letter to Public Works and I CC'd a fellow council member about the 74 pots that have been part of the Noble neighborhood for about 11 or 10 years. And these plants have always been filled with flowers, and then hanging pots have been placed also. For most of those years, except for last year, Deluxe Landscape filled them, watered them, and fertilized them so that they looked beautiful from around May the 17th, around the third week of May, until early fall. Last year, it was pretty much a negative show of what not taking care of pots means. My reason for emailing Public Works was to let them know that we always fill the pots during our We Are Noble festivity, which this year happens on the 15th, 16th, and 17th of May. So my main concern is that I never received any answer from Public Works. And so it's, again, that dismay at like, well, how do I get a hold of people when I can't just put a thing out on the app that we do when we see a pothole? I have a more concerned question. So that was one concern I had. Another concern I had is that I live in the Noble neighborhood and often have picked up trash along that way. 2646 Noble Road has been an eyesore since I have been picking up trash for 10 years. I think something happened between yesterday and that some of that trash was picked up. My main thing is who is in charge of negligent, it's a condemned apartment building, who is in charge of those apartment buildings to make sure that it is not unsightly. That is what I view every day when I go past. It is part of my neighborhood and it looked like a slum. And somebody ought to be taking care of that. Whether it's Public Works or whatever, it needs to be taken care of, that they're fined appropriately or the city takes care of it. Thank you very much.
Barb, real quick, 2646 is...
And then it's 3 doors. I think it's 2646.
Is that Quilliams or what?
No, it's on Noble Road.
No, but I mean Noble and what?
President Kuda, it's
Delmore.
between Woodridge and Delmore.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. And does the NABA agreement change anything about the 74 planners maintenance, if you will?
I don't know at the moment, but we can look into it.
Okay. All right, so Addie, can you make a note of that just so we can get an answer about who's going to be responsible for maintenance?
Marlene Goldheimer.
Good evening to everybody. Good to be here. We're lucky that we're part of the solution, and that's very important to me. I'd like to respond to the talk about ICE and the police department. And having heard from the police, I see what a sensitive area this is in approaching them. I think they take their job very seriously. But I have to say that the talking points that I received about this whole issue with immigration, I was very taken with the fact that the people who ask these questions and who are asking for some rulings so that it's very clear how we handle the immigrant situation in our city. I'm very impressed with how concise these guidelines are, and that it helps you figure out just how you want to go about this. So let me at least reiterate what was sent to me. And it says, the first talking point, end the contract with Flock and put the $50,000 a year into a legal counsel for immigrants as proposed by Cleveland Heights for Immigration Rights. I assume it was abbreviated. It sounds like a very good idea to me. I support that. And Flock, I understand there are some good things about it, and that it helps the police force track down, people who may have done bad things. So maybe there's a different way to handle that other than Flock, but it's respectable. It certainly needs to be addressed. The second is to pass legislation that ensures local police won't cooperate with ICE. I think that having the legislation is kind of like money in the bank, That way we have something solid. Review and improve our Cleveland Heights Police Department policy on immigration. Certainly a good idea. I think these measures, because we're in crisis, and because federally we can't count on anything, local government is who we turn to. And I think that we have a very good one and a responsive one.
Thank you. I'm sorry your time is up, but thank you very much. Appreciate your comments.
Yeah, thank you.
Sonia Charles.
Hello, my name is Sonia Charles. I live on Erie View near the Noba neighborhood. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak to council. I am here to ask you to please fulfill your promise to put ranked choice voting on the November ballot. The Charter Review Committee thoroughly vetted the issue and recommended it. They even highlighted how the charter would need to be updated if it is passed. You have also been given suitable ballot language to help ease the process. And lastly, I would just like to make clear, I'm not asking council to endorse ranked choice voting. I am simply asking you to keep your promise and put it on the ballot in November so that the citizens of Cleveland Heights can have their say. Thank you for your time.
Danielle Benham.
Thank you. Danielle Benham, Woodbridge, in the Noble neighborhood. I actually have two issues. The best thing is it's snowing, and that's going to be my first issue. And it's snow on the sidewalks. Here in Cleveland Heights, we have a school district that does not bus most of our students. And my children were blessed that their mom drove them to school and had that benefit and was able to pick them up. And now they're both off in college, and the oldest has started his first job and graduated. So I don't have that issue of my child having to walk to school. But this winter, it saddened me deeply every time I saw students in my neighborhood who had no safe way to get to school. And this became even more evident on a morning when I watched 3 elementary school children making their way to Noble Elementary. They were coming to the intersection of Glenwood and Cleveland Heights Boulevard. And 2 cars almost hit one of the children as he was the oldest, helping his younger siblings walk in the middle of the street. And the reason why they were walking in the middle of the street was thankfully it was at least plowed one time. I have lived in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which gets more snow than this. And my children have both attended the University of Toledo. And both of those cities have snow sidewalk removal ordinance with fines for landlords and homeowners who do not shovel their snow within 24 hours of the snow. I'm asking that we consider this. Also, look at Toledo. They have ways to help those who cannot shovel the snow, and maybe we as neighbors help our fellow neighbors. With the fact that the state of Ohio is considering expanding how far students have to live farther from a school, making school districts bus less of our students, we really need to think about this. The second topic that I have is the same topic that Barb had, 2646. It is literally 4 houses from mine. I'm ashamed. And how are we supposed to get people and businesses to come into that neighborhood and to invest so I and my neighbors can have coffee shops and bookstores? Because right now, if I were to see that property, I'm ashamed. Thank you.
Christopher Wood.
I assume that that clock is not correct.
No, it's not, but there's your time.
In a recent email, Jessica Cohen wrote that flock cameras help keep us safe. I am not sure what she means by safe, but there is no evidence for that which has not been produced by the company itself. Surveillance cameras, on the other hand, have been around for a long time. One 40-year survey of trends in Britain and South Korea found that they reduced crime modestly by about 13%. On the other hand, the security consulting firm Silva says, quote, despite an almost universal belief otherwise, there is no conclusive evidence that video surveillance systems serve as a deterrent to crime. The police are always eager to adopt new technology that will make their job easier, from computers to tasers. And every day we read about police misuse of them, from surveillance of political groups by the one and blinding people with the other. China has installed hundreds of millions of cameras to reduce crime. Do we want to become China? But talk about cameras obscures the main issue. Laws prohibiting crimes and the police forces used to enforce them are created to control us, not to protect us. Our prisons are full, not because Americans are more evil than other people, but because our society is. Inequality, poverty, racism, lack of education, decent housing, these are the cause of most crime. Add to these the attempt by many to impose their religious beliefs concerning issues around sexual identity, marriage, and abortion. I would like to direct our time and money to the root causes of our problems, or to any humane and fruitful endeavor, and leave the cameras to the Chinese. To close, I would like to remind everyone that there is one overriding moral issue in the world today, and that is the genocide happening in Gaza and the West Bank. Free Palestine from the river to the sea.
I do want to remind people, again, say your name and the street you live on.
Lou Radovojevich.
Lou Radovojevich, Middlehurst Road. Forgive me, this is little bit sloppy here, but what I really want to talk about is our Cleveland Heights YouTube channel and the importance of it for public meetings. I want to start off with some good news. Ms. Larson, to your point, that Cleveland Heights Municipal Services Environmental Sustainability Meeting that took place on March 9th was awesome. Highly recommend everybody to watch it. It's really good stuff. You're going to walk away feeling good as a Cleveland Heights resident. So thank to all of you. Thank you to your former colleagues, and even thanks to the former Mayor Soren. I mean, to put that $18 million of ARPA funds towards that was excellent. Which leads me to my issue. The only reason I can thank you is because I was able to watch that recording on the YouTube channel. I presume when I open up the city's calendar of events to review upcoming meetings, that all of these are considered public meetings and that I have the right to attend. Last week, I opened your calendar of events and I was intrigued by the Community Improvement Corporation that took place on 3/11. I know very little about that. I was intrigued. It sounds important. I knew it was a version of South Euclid's, One South Euclid thing, dealing with vacant lots and infill housing. But I want to learn more. But I asked a simple question, is it being recorded? And yes, it is being recorded, but it's not placed on YouTube. And that matters a lot to me. I spend a lot of time on YouTube after your meetings just to digest it. But that was not on YouTube. I don't know why, but it needs to be. That's important stuff. There are two committees that are being formed as of recently. One, I think, is the Technical Advisory Committee, either TAG or TAC. I'd love to know that that's going to be on YouTube as well. It's important stuff that's coming through there. And then the other one that caught my attention was on February 23rd, was during the Administrative Committee. That's when you were tasked to find two appointments for this new created Housing Council. And that Housing Council was built under a very tight window. If I listened to that February 23rd Administrative Services that was held, I don't think you quite understood, Mr. DeFoy, exactly what the content or what that position was. Mr. Cobb, I felt the same way with you. You weren't quite sure exactly what those two positions were for. But here we are. You had to appoint somebody by March 2nd, and in that meeting, it was because of some decision that has to take place by March 31st. And we're talking about tax incentives. That matters to me. That matters to my neighbors, to be aware of that. And that's where YouTube is critical to have. At the end, I think it's really simple. Any committees, any commissions that deals with real estate, deals with zoning, deals with development, deals with tax incentives, in the name of transparency, earning the trust of your residents, it needs to be on your YouTube channel immediately. Thanks for your time. Appreciate what you do.
John Wesp.
Good evening. My name is John Wesp. I live on Rexwood. I was born and raised in Germany, in Ingolstadt. I came here in 2008. My mother's American, father's German. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here today. I'm here to voice my strong opposition to the installation of surveillance cameras and automated license plate readers in our community. I understand the intention behind all these technologies. Safety matters to all of us. But we must recognize that once a government builds a system capable of constant monitoring, even with the best of intentions, it rarely stops there. What begins as a tool for security can quietly expand into a tool for tracking the movements, associations, and daily lives of ordinary citizens. History offers a powerful warning. In East Germany, the surveillance state did not appear overnight. It grew step by step, justified each time by claims of security and public order. The Stasi, that's the Staatssicherheitsdienst, state secret police, or not secret police, but state police, didn't begin by asking for total control. It began by collecting just a little more information, installing just a few more monitoring tools, always insisting it was for the common good. Over time, a society that valued freedom found itself living in one of the most intrusive surveillance systems the world has ever known. Of course, no one is suggesting we are East Germany, but the methods, creating systems that track people where people go, who they meet, and what they do are fundamentally similar. And once these tools are installed, they're nearly impossible to roll back. Data collected for one purpose inevitably finds its way to another. Vendors, law enforcement agencies, and other jurisdictions, and even private actors can gain access, and they have in some cases with Flock. Each breach, misuse, or expansion chips away at our civil liberties. A truly safe community is not one where people are constantly watched. It is one where people trust their government, feel free to go about their lives without being tracked, and know that their privacy is respected. Surveillance cameras and automated license plate readers undermine that trust. They treat every resident as a potential suspect, not as a neighbor. I urge this council to reject these technologies and instead invest in approaches that build community safety without sacrificing our fundamental right to privacy. Thank you very much.
Bill Brumel.
My name is Bill Brummel, and I live on Middlehurst Road, not far from Lou. And I just wanted to say I was impressed with what the police chief had to say about the current policies with regard to working with ICE and the frank difficulties they clearly face. You could sort of read that on his face pretty easily. And I fully expect that the city is going to face more pressure from the federal government for the police to work more closely with ICE. And I simply wanted to say this. As a law enforcement agency, the officers at ICE look more like a bunch of gangsters than like law enforcement. And keeping law enforcement running right is hard, as I'm sure your chief could tell you, probably has. And I think it would be extremely bad for the Cleveland Heights Police Department for its officers to have to spend a lot of time in the presence of ICE officers. I think that would degrade the ability of the department to act in ways that we would all want. So it's not an immediate concern, but I thought I should say something. Thank you.
Bethany Baldwin. Quentin Yoder.
Hello, Council. My name is Quentin Yoder. I live in South Euclid, and I'm representing Cleveland Heights for Immigrant Rights. Before we get started, I want to talk. I've heard a little bit of chatter in the neighborhood chatter about diversity, and we've talked a little bit about diversity tonight and the importance of diversity. And I realize that this is ironic coming from a white man to a mostly white council. That said, we have a number of issues that are facing our community that admittedly require a sensitivity that I myself have a hard time developing, and a mostly white council has a hard time developing. Listening to the police chief talk about his idea of what the correspondence was of ICE is not reflective of the facts that we've provided you. We have provided you with evidence of the fact that the people who called in on the driver who was driving recklessly were discussing immigration status and whether or not they could detain the protester and who they could deport. Also, I want to bring to the attention that the police chief himself acknowledges the fact that the men were driving in a dark tinted SUV wearing tactical gear. You expect me to believe that those are civilians? I simply refuse to believe civilians are driving around in dark tinted vehicles and tactical gear. That seems absurd to me. Now, realistically, as council and as a mostly white council, you have a responsibility to show the members of your community that you can show up and you need extra sensitivity. I'll admit to myself, I have missed that sensitivity. I've been involved with my work with ICE and I find it heartbreaking. But I talk to my black friends and they tell me, and I talk about ICE with them, and they tell me this is not new. The state has been violent to us and has been targeting us for things we have not done for a while, for a long time. And as a white person, I simply don't have the capability to attune myself to that. So I'm asking you as council, you have a responsibility to listen into the voices of people within your community. And this is an example. There are more examples. Flock cameras, which disproportionately are used on investigations in neighborhoods of color. Another instance in which a mostly white council is simply not affected by this fact. And I think you have a responsibility to listen to your constituents on this fact. I'm going to end by quoting the woman who spoke earlier. A diverse community is not defined by what is on paper. It is defined by what happens when people show up. And you as council have a responsibility to show up. Also, given the fact that we have shown, I find there to be reasonable evidence that the police department corresponded with ICE. I want to know what your investigation was. Thank you.
That's all.
Mr. President, would you like for me to comment?
I would like you to comment if you want to comment.
I would just like to reiterate what the police chief said earlier, that there was no cooperation, no collaboration with any federal agencies, and that my directive to staff has been and will continue to be that we should not do anything more than what is legally obligated of us.
Thank you, Mayor. We're going to move now to old business or new business. Thank you. How about council comments? Council member comments? Yes, Councilman Cohen.
Thank you, President Kuda. Today, I circulated draft legislation to my council colleagues to establish clear enforceable guardrails around the city's use of automated license plate reader technology. We discussed this proposed legislation briefly at tonight's Committee of the Whole meeting. This proposed legislation is the result of collaboration between council and the administration, taking seriously the concerns that we've heard from residents, particularly around privacy, data use, and the potential for misuse in the immigration context. I want to say that personally, I'm grateful for that partnership because this is exactly what responsive, thoughtful local government should look like. This legislation also builds on the broader work that council and the administration have been doing to support and protect our immigrant community. From passing Resolution 50-2026, opposing state efforts to compel cooperation with ICE, to elevating legal resources through partnerships with organizations like Legal Aid and AMI and our community resource website on the city's website, to the broad dissemination in the city's March 6th newsletter that the Cleveland Heights Police Department's policies state that they do not enforce civil immigration law. This is part of a consistent and intentional approach. What this resolution does is take those values and put them into enforceable law in the context of this specific technology. It limits how long data can be retained, ensures it is used only for legitimate law enforcement purposes, and makes clear that it cannot be used or shared for civil immigration enforcement without a judicial warrant. These are common sense, best practice guardrails. They allow us to benefit from technology while maintaining strong protections for civil liberties and community trust. We are working on a path to pass this as an emergency measure, ideally on April 6th, which is our next council meeting. It may or may not be considered at the Public Safety and Health Committee if we have a committee meeting in between then, but if not, we can discuss it Committee of the Whole. So that's a summary of our conversation from before this meeting, and I look forward to our continued work on this effort.
Thank you, and thank you for taking the initiative and doing the work on this. Appreciate it. Any other council comments? JD Foy.
I was going to congratulate all of the Heights High students student athletes that progressed to the state level championships. Our report from the student representative went through that in detail, so I won't highlight everything he said again, but I would like to congratulate the Heights High boys basketball team on an incredible season. They won the Division I district finals where they were the number 11 seed and they took down the number 3 seed to win the district finals. They advanced to state regional semifinals for the first time since 2022. And unfortunately, their season came to an end last week in Akron, but we should be very proud of that incredible accomplishment. I'll also recognize briefly the 2 Heights High students who competed in the girls wrestling state championship and the 6 members of the indoor track and field team who also competed in the state championships. So congratulations to everyone who worked so hard on those accomplishments. And then I want to offer some clarification, since I have received several inquiries about this, about a Board of Zoning Appeals case. There's a number of people have reached out to me about a new cannabis dispensary on Lee Road, just south of Cedar. They are seeking a zoning variance to allow for a drive-through window for transactions. The Board of Zoning Appeals will hear this case this Wednesday, March 18th at 7 p.m. in council chambers. Members of the community can attend and make comments or submit written commentary emailing either bza@clevelandheights.gov or planning@clevelandheights.gov. And I just wanted to offer that as clarification. This is not a council decision. This will be before the Board of Zoning Appeals, and members of the community are welcome to either attend or submit written comment. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to ask the law director, is it frowned on or forbidden for council members to make comments at BZA hearings?
I'm not sure if it's frowned on. It's not forbidden, but it needs to be done carefully so that council isn't seen as using its influence to impact the outcome of a process that's supposed to be done objectively by the board, exercising its quasi-judicial authority to determine the rights of the applicant coming before it.
Okay. Any other council comments? Yes, please.
Quick question on that. Are there any other current applications to open any other dispensaries in the city?
I'm not aware of any, but that doesn't mean much. I can find out the answer to that.
Okay.
Any other comments? All right, President's report. I want to thank Emmanuel who gave the Heights report. He's such a great kid. I always run into him here and there, and he's just delightful. We have an Arts Commission meeting for the first time tomorrow at 5:30. I want to thank my council colleagues who were with me last year that helped make that happen, because that Arts Commission was sitting around, I'm embarrassed to say this, for 2 years, not operating. In a relatively short amount of time, we got things up and running. I'm just hoping that the weather doesn't preclude them from meeting tomorrow. And I want to thank our finance, I'm pointing to an empty chair right now, but I want to thank our finance director, Joe Brodzinski, for hanging with us for 3 hours tonight. That was wonderful. If you ever get a chance to meet him and introduce yourself, please do that. And so at 9:07, this meeting is adjourned.